reaching up and making the grab. Odell Beckham Jr. Stafford buys time. Protection is good, and so is the pass. Henderson came out of the backfield. Jefferson in motion. Henderson, nice cutback. Stafford rolling and throwing. Caught, Cup, touchdown. Stafford caught on the run. Cup, who else? Out of the slot to the right, looks that way, fires that way. Cup makes the grab at about the 18-yard line. Pass, Cup, got it, touchdown. Burrow trying to keep it going, gets spun down, gets it away, and incomplete. It looked like P-Ron might have had a shot to make the grab, but the Rams now running down to celebrate with a defensive play.
And guess who? Guess who? I mean, you don't even have to think about it. Do not even have to think about it.
Pointing to the ring finger.
Hello, everyone, to another episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. I am your host, Ashton Spencer, with my other co-host, Zach Mayer. We are 50 days till week 1. Zach, how are you feeling?
I'm getting excited. I've been watching all the Rams behind the scenes, behind the grind episodes. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for training camp. I'm ready for preseason. Even though I don't typically care for preseason, I'm really excited just to get back into the football mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's get back into football mode. Let's start getting prepped for the preseason. Zach, we haven't really talked a lot about this. Are you a big preseason watcher? I know you go to some of the games, but I know some people are like, I just ignore the preseason. It's complete garbage. Other people are more religious. Some people just like to watch players. I love like scouting some of the players, especially newer ones, kind of seeing how they perform in certain situations. Where do you fit with the preseason?
Yeah, I don't put too much stock into them. We've for over the last number of years, the Rams don't play their starters. You may see, a couple reps in the first quarter of the first game, but you very rarely ever see a star on the field during preseason. But that doesn't mean that it's not important. For fans, it's good to come to the game. It's good to get the energy hyped. It's not just a preseason, for the NFL players themselves, but it's for the fan base too. It's getting them back into that mode. And it also helps, the cheapers are usually a lot less expensive. So it gets in fans who may not be able to afford the regular season games. But really what this does is it really, especially in the Rams organization, is it helps prepare, the draft class. It helps prepare those who may be on the practice squad, or those who are trying to find their way onto an NFL team, whether it's with the Rams or not. And, it really shows us what our depth can look like, and, what key players can we pull in if, something unfortunate happens to one of the starters, or we need to shift things around, or things aren't working. So, I don't put much stock into the conclusion of the game. If the Rams lose all 3 preseason games, I'm not going to sweat it. I don't think that it is what it is, but it's nothing to be concerned about as a fan of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely helps kind of decide some, you could say, position battles, especially lower in the depth chart, some secondary backup position battles. So let's get into our programming. We'll go over a few just minor topics, and then we'll try to dig in a little bit later in the podcast into our weekly schedule breakdown. We're doing weeks 5 through 9, or 5 through 8. it should be a very important stretch of the season. Very weird. We keep on playing NFC West opponents pretty early in the season, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But let's get into the EPSIs. Zach, it's going live right now as we are recording, but we'll just go ahead and break down. I mean, no shocker here. Cup gets best championship performance. Let's say it was pretty clutch. I will admit, I think OBJ would have probably ended up being the person who got a lot of these accolades, especially for that game, because he started on a really good trajectory in the first quarter, or well, first and second quarter. But Zach, what's your reaction to that and OBJ peering with Cup on the red carpet?
Yeah, I mean that's always a good sign. We've talked on this podcast before. OBJ, and he's not signed back with the Rams. He's not signed with any team right now. But there is no ill will between the two parties, and this just shows it again. Where OBJ appearing on the red carpet with Cup during the FCs, it's great. As far as the championship performance goes, it's a key. I mean, it's another check off that box that Cooper Cup has done everything. Um, and becoming the Triple Crown winner, Super Bowl MVP, now getting the best championship performance on an FC, and then he was also given the best NFL player on an FC as well. So this guy keeps stacking one thing after another, and there's not a whole lot left, other than continuing to win and continuing to be the best player he can possibly be. 2021 was definitely the year of the Cup.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, he can always win MVP. So there's definitely room to improve, and he said he wants to be a better player next year than he was last year. And I think he's fully capable of it, especially with a really, really different offensive weapon that Robinson brings. It's going to be a different dynamic than the offense last year, especially early on. So let's kind of dive into I don't know how much you're a fan of Madden, but if people listen to this podcast long enough, you'll hear me rant about Madden. I think Madden as a game has gone downhill. Don't want to get too sidetracked here. Madden rankings, we're not taking them too seriously, guys. So don't message us and don't get offended if our opinion doesn't match with yours. Um, Generally, what's your reaction to these ratings? Especially, I think the big one for me, Zach, is Cup at a 98 and not a 99. I think it's I get the argument that people have tried to say where like it's only one good season, every other season has been decent. If he was someone who was just like a Zach Taylor, or not, sorry, not Zach Taylor, like the running back for the Colts, Taylor, like he had a really good season. It wasn't on the level of Cooper Cup compared to his peers in the wide receiving category. He had statistically a top two wide receiver season of all time. If that's not deserving of a 99 the year after, then almost no one is. I think it's a little ridiculous that he doesn't get 99. You already have a man 98. I felt like they just didn't want to have a other 99, and that's why they have him at 98. I know it's a minor gripe. It's 1 point. I just think it's stupid.
I mean, again, it goes back to the accolades that he's won this year: Super Bowl MVP, Triple Crown winner. I mean, if you're the Triple Crown winner and you don't get ranked 99, I mean, that seems kind of silly. I mean, yes, Devontae Adams, he's an amazing wide receiver, and he should be in that tier of the 99s. But he wasn't the Triple Crown winner. His team didn't make it to the Super Bowl, didn't win a Super Bowl. So, like, there's all these things that back Cup up, and you go and you kind of look at some of the rating scales that they gave him, and they gave and probably what knocked him down from his 99 to a 98 is strength, apparently based on the other two current wide receivers on the Rams team. He was the least strong of the bunch, but I don't know if do they watch these games? Do they not see what these wide receivers do? I mean, what Cup does if he's not getting the ball, he is blocking for the person who is getting the ball. So yes, it's a gripe. It's 98. It's an amazing feat of itself. But again, when you bring everything that Cup has done this season and to just dink him by that 1 point, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I just don't see the argument for just not making him a 99 and Adams over Cup. I just it and the thing that irritates me the most about this is people are like, well, you can't just be reflexive to one season. That's most Madden ratings are very reflexive to the season beforehand. It's not consistent with typically how they rate players. They
Mm-hmm.
almost always do that. They overcompensate for the year beforehand. And it's not like Cup just had a good or a great year. He had a unreal year, a top 2 season of all time wide receiver year. So that's where we're coming from. Other players' ratings, we have Bobby Wagner coming in at 91. Robinson was 82. Akers 83. Henderson 79. And Aaron Donald is going to be 99. I think yeah, I think that's the one player in the Rams that they just by default, unless he would have to have a pretty big off year for them not to give him a 99. And that would be pretty stupid because he's been great every year in the Rams.
Yeah, for sure, and yeah, those numbers for the the cornerbacks and the D line come out on July 21st. Uh, we're recording on the 20th, and then quarterbacks will also be released on the 22nd. So it'll be really interesting to see where they put Jalen Ramsey, especially we'll kind of dive into some of the controversy that he's kind of been put into, not that he's actually caused, and then where Stafford lands on this list. Do you have any insight on what you think that Stafford should get based on his
So
performance this year?
I will say on the 4 players I just mentioned outside of Cup, I agree with their rankings or their like point totals. I think that's roughly where they should be on a 100-point scale. I think Robinson, he had an off year. Before last year, I would have put him at like a 90. After last year, I think 82 is maybe 83, 84, depending on how you do his catching. I think they maybe have him rated a little bit too low for that, but really Akers 83, I think that's a solid rating for him. Anderson, I think 79 may be a little bit too high for Henderson personally. I would have to look at his kind of breakdown. As with Stafford, I think Stafford should be rated a 91. That's where I would put him. I think 91 would be a fair rating for him
Mhm.
with like a 98 throw power.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely with you there. I'm leaving at if I'm thinking the lowest that they would rate him, I'm thinking maybe 88, and then I was going as high as 92. He had a tremendous year. I mean, November was kind of not so great, but as a whole, I mean, just what he did, coming from the Lions and then coming onto the Rams, like and becoming a Super Bowl champion and going through so much turmoil. And not turmoil, but going through a lot of change. It is hard on a player. It's hard on a quarterback who has to come in and lead a whole new team that he's spent 5 minutes on. So I definitely think he's going to fit somewhere into the 88 to 92 range, but we will see what happens on Friday.
Mm. Yeah, I think Ramsey will end up probably being a 96 or 97. That's where I feel like they're gonna end up putting him.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right. We'll kind of wait and react next podcast to the other rankings as they drop or when they drop. So let's kind of go into other some minor news. Bobby Brown is suspended for 6 games for taking performance enhancing drugs. Zach, both me and you don't know what it's like to be in the NFL, as shocking as that is to our listeners. Uh, I know it is something to very hard to get to. It's a high bar, and players feel like they have to maintain such elite status, and they do. But taking drugs is not a great solution, and it is always gonna burn you. I know it. A lot of players took it like a decade ago, a few decades ago, and it was. You can say it's unfair, but now, like, he shouldn't have done it. He got suspended for 6 games, and I think this is a bad sign for the trajectory of his career. I know other players have been suspended for this and came back, but typically it's not a great sign.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I mean, especially with a team like the Rams who, leave controversy kind of at the door. This was kind of one of those like, just kind of disappointed, especially when, I thought he was going to become a, more prominent player. And I think this year, and I think this kind of sidesteps him to come back, be pushed back a little bit more. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what the Rams do with him post the suspension. Um, but it is what it is, and when you take that risk, you're going to have to pay the consequences.
hmm Rams will begin their Super Bowl rings tomorrow. Zach, this is seems like it'll be cool. Their ring design will probably be pretty neat. I will not buy one, because I do not have that kind of money. So,
Hey, I look on Etsy, and Etsy has knockoff ones, and I would buy a knockoff one if they weren't super
oh,
expensive. If it was, I mean, I don't care if it's real or fake. If it's cool looking, it's cool looking.
yeah, $40, put it in the trophy case.
Yep, I think that's fine with me. So back when when Indianapolis had its combine, they did have they had all of the rings from all of the Super Bowls, and you go in there and look at them. Number one, the Patriots have way too many, and they're huge. You don't really realize how big these things are until you see them, and they have the biggest ones. But I will say the Rams, the first Rams Super Bowl ring is I I don't like it. It's boring, it's plain, and I don't know. So I'm really hoping that we get some cool footage of it tomorrow, and that it looks pretty sweet. I mean, I think the team as a whole, I think a lot of input came from the players, which I think they all have great taste. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the look and the detail of it is going to be.
Mhm. And Ramsey, a story comes out where Ramsey is apparently getting, you can say, disrespected or like being kind of uh lowered a little bit, saying he's not elite by AFC executive. It was anonymous, of course. I mean, I don't really put any stock into stories like this personally, Zach. I mean, we are the ones who will have most of the time the best opinions about players on our team because we watch them the most, right? We understand the situations where he's good, where he's bad, where he doesn't do as well. We know the games that he did great in and the games where he wasn't so hot. And we understand like what is good for him, what is bad for him. Way more than some of the executives, which will only watch him 1 or 2 games, and that's all they base their opinion on. If you're a Bengals executive and you watched him in the Super Bowl, you're gonna think he's not as good as he's built up to, and we all know he had an injury. With that outside of the like kind of excuse bubble, even with the injury, he played bad in the Super Bowl, but that doesn't mean he's a bad player. And if these executives can't take his total work into kind of like comparison, then like I don't care about their opinion.
Yeah, it was kind of frustrating. I mean, it was all about like, identifying who was the best corner of the league. That's kind of what the polling was going around. And this one exec, had to go off. And, when you look outside, people are like, oh man, during the Bucks game when Evans caught the ball, and Ramsey fell and whatever, and you see that, and yeah, it's like, yeah, he missed that one, but how many times does he actually miss, or he's not right there? It's not very often, and it's maybe one a game, and you're like, most corners get burnt out at least multiple times a game. If it's one game every 5 games that Ramsey gets burnt out, that's still pretty good. That's still pretty good, especially when he's always the one covering the number one receiver. So the quarterbacks are afraid to throw to him, which I'm not surprised. He has that wingspan, he has that agility, he has that presence about him that kind of makes people kind of be a little bit more cautious around him, and that's what you need. And again, it's one of those things where, yeah, the Rams are the Super Bowl champions. They're going to be a little bit disrespected outside of Aaron Donald, because I don't think anyone could ever disrespect that person. But I feel like the Rams are going to be attacked from all different angles, especially because they're Super Bowl champions. They're going to be the defenders. They're the ones who are going to be coming in and defending their crown and defending their ring, and they're going to get these little pokes and this and that. But it was something that saying that he's on his decline is, I think, a little bit a little bit too harsh on him. I mean, especially since coming out that he had to have shoulder surgery, and then the other one is just kind of in rehab. They didn't do surgery on that shoulder, so really it's just putting all those pieces together. Um, it's again, it's a one line comment from one exec from the other conference even. So I'm not putting too much stock in it. My faith is still in Ramsey. I still think he's still the best corner in the league, and he has a lot to prove going into this year.
Yeah, I can definitely understand why that Bengals Zach is a little salty. So, all right, Zach, let's go ahead and start breaking down Week 5 Cowboys at Rams. I will kind of go through some of the key departures uh, for you, Zach. We have Amari Cooper, Randy Gregory, Lyle Collins, and Connor Williams leaving the Cowboys, and they end up basically re-signing a few players. They got James Washington, and they got Dante Fowler, a former Ram. So what's kind of your reaction to this Cowboys team? I personally think this is going to be one of the weaker Cowboys teams in the last 2 to 3 years. Um, I do not like their coaching. I think their coach is the reason why they have been out of serious playoff contention with a really good roster the last 2 years. And they just proved it losing to the 49ers last year. Is just not good. Not good coaching, and they lose very key contributors, especially on the offense.
Yeah, I mean, um, the Cowboys are just always um, this interesting team. I mean, let's kind of break down their statistics from last year. They were 12-5. They were first in the NFC East division. Um, their points that they were actually first in the NFL as far as getting points, 31 points uh, per game, 530 points total. Um, the points against, they were seventh in the league with 358. And their record 12-5, that's a really good record. But then they fall to the 49ers, who had to squeak in to even get into the league. So it's just a weird team. Like, I'm not really sure. I think Dak Prescott is a really good quarterback, but that's as long as he stays healthy enough to complete a season. So I, again, it's a very weird season. I agree with you. The coaching is not the strongest. I think really that's kind of gone downhill, just like you said. I was actually surprised. I didn't even realize Amari Cooper departed from that team. So I've always liked him as a wide receiver. So uh,
Yeah, he went to the Browns.
he went to the Browns. Wow. Okay. So
Yeah. They
whew,
traded him for a third.
wow, that's okay. Well, we can see how the Cowboys like to play with their players. So yeah, I don't know. This is going to be I think this is just going to be a weird one. I think the Rams do have an edge on this, um, but
I mean, so let's kind of go through their season last year. They open against Tampa Bay and lose. Um, they end up beating the Chargers, pretty narrowly. Uh, and then they beat Philly, they beat Carolina, they beat the Giants, they beat New England, but in overtime. They beat Minnesota. It's like, honestly, Zach, their schedule last year was super easy, and they
yeah.
lost every hard game outside of the only hard game they arguably had that they won. That was a playoff team, I think, was New England. Yeah, they lost to every other playoff team outside of yeah, outside of the Eagles. The
Right.
Eagles is the only other playoff team that they beat in the season. And that's just like, you can't do that. And I think this is a reason why the Cowboys struggle, especially in the last 2 decades in the playoffs. It is incredibly hard to have a very, very weak division, have 6 games where you're not being put against quality talent,
Hmm.
and then when you get a schedule where the rest of it you don't really face but like 3 games where you're facing quality talent, doesn't matter if you win or lose those games. You're only testing yourself so much against top tier NFL talent. And then when you get into the playoffs, you're going to get hard teams. It's the playoffs. So it kind of doesn't condition your team well for hard, close games, right? And say what you want about last year about the Rams losing some of the games they lost, but that gave us experience as a whole team in certain situations, and like behind, having thrown a pick six, having to come back in those situations. Not We weren't facing the Giants twice. We
Hmm.
weren't facing Washington twice. Both of those teams are just complete garbage last year. Um, and I think that's why they struggle against good teams, especially in the playoffs.
I mean, for sure. I mean, when you go back and look at some of these teams, or the divisions. I mean, the NFC East seems like a is the weakest division in this league, in this at least in the NFC, if not in the entire NFL. Some people could say the AFC South might also be the weakest league, um, but but yeah, it's you're going against the Eagles, the Washington football team, and or well, now the Commanders and the Giants. So, um, man, I just feel a little weird about this one because you can never. I don't think you can ever really count Dak out of things. Having Gallup, I think he's a top tier receiver as well. So I'll be definitely interested to see what this house, but I do think that the Rams will edge this one out a little close. I think it'll be closer than I'm comfortable with, but I do think that we can squeak this one out. If I were to project, I will say that the Rams do win this one. Um, I would say 24-17.
Um, I think this is the weakest roster the Cowboys have had in 4 to 5 years, and I think without some of that top talent that they did have, I think it's going to be harder for the coaching to hold up even as much. And I do think their division got better. I think the Giants got a little bit better. I think the Eagles got significantly better, and I think Washington is kind of like, they most likely got a hair better, but they could have got worse. So I do think they'll end up dropping some to them. I think they will drop it to us. I think we end up having a comfortable win. I think we win 32-20. I think this is a game where people expect that, like, for some reason, Cowboys are always a default, like, oh, let's make them a top five NFL team. It doesn't matter, like, realistically who they lost or won. They're just always a favorite. And I think the Rams kind of shock them and get a pretty big win.
Great. I would definitely look forward to that kind of a win. I just think, I mean, I think the reason because the Cowboys have always been considered you know, America's team or whatever. You know, they have a huge fan base. Jerry Jones puts is that right? Did I say his name right? You know, he has he has all the money and he puts a lot of effort into the NFL and um, you know that's kind of why they're always there. Their presence is always known. Um, but you know, I like I said, I think the Rams will edge this one out.
Yeah, they're always there in the last 20 years because their division has been complete trash out the side of the Giants having 2 good years.
But you know, if we go back and look at kind of the ones that I've kind of projected over the only thing that I guess I'm concerned about is in my projection so far, since we've been breaking these down week by week, at this point they would be 4-0. I think I said that they would win all these other games prior to
Hmm.
that. So you know, this is the one game where I could see, you know, if the Rams are, you know, slowly getting tired, we're not quite at the bye week. Um, you know, this may be one of those games where, um, you know, we miss a step. It is at SoFi, so that is, I think, give us a benefit. But also the Cowboys travel well, so that is doesn't really mean a whole lot. But hopefully, since we're now Super Bowl champions, that the fans will continue to show up in higher numbers than they have in the past. So looking forward to that. But yeah, still same Rams gonna edge this one out. So they're gonna be 5-0
Well,
based on my record.
yeah, I mean, it's fine. The stadium's going to be 50-50, but I appreciate all the Cowboy fans coming to give LA a lot of money for just to watch their team lose. So let's go on to the Panthers at Rams. Um, a lot of familiar faces you will notice, Zach, in this list. They end up adding Austin Corbett, Corey Littleton, Johnny Hecker. They added Baker Mayfield, Xavier Woods, and Dante Foreman, and they end up losing Gilmore, Hassan Reddick, Trent Scott, and Jermaine Carter. And they drafted Matt Corral. So some big names there. Some they did lose Gilmore and Reddick. I think those are two decently big names. I don't think Gilmore was really there long enough to kind of gel with the team. Reddick also or well, I think Riddick was there longer. He was pretty good with them. But what's your reaction to this kind of Panthers team? They were 5-12, bottom of the barrel in the NFC South. Matt Rule, very disappointing season. I thought they were going to be a lot better than they ended up being. I think I had them like getting 9 wins last year, and they undershot that pretty badly.
Yeah, this is a team that I feel like has the talent. I mean, having Christian McCaffrey on the team, um, you know, we've also seen that he's the one who's been carrying this team for the last several years. And as we know, one
If he
player,
can be healthy.
if he can be healthy, and I think that was the problem. I was think if you put so much personal or so much on one person, I think that's where you know you're going to have more prone to injury. It's kind of, to me, it's more like the Tennessee Titans when you're putting all of your baskets into Henry. You know, he's going to be prone to injury, and he was injured. Now, you know, when they faced the Rams last year, that was a different story, and you know, blah blah blah. We're not going to go into that right now, but going back to this, you know, yeah, I mean, you have a Christian McCaffrey who is a high level running back, top 5 running back in the league, but you've also been using him as a receiver, and you've been using him as a quarterback, and you've been using him as this and a blocker and things like that, and you're just wearing these guys out. It is interesting that they decided to bring on, quite a few former Rams players, especially with Corbett and Hecker, coming off from this season. But yeah, it's just going to be interesting. I mean, you always wonder, like, what secrets are they going to tell to kind of give them more of an edge. But honestly, I don't think that they will get much out of them. My more interesting thing is who they're gonna face in week 6 as a quarterback. Is it going to be Sam Darnold, or is it going to be Baker Mayfield, um,
Or Matt
there
Corral.
or Matt Corral? I think he's lower down on the totem pole, unless Darnold and Mayfield both flounder in their spots, but especially by week 6.
Well,
Um,
you have to remember this offense, Panthers offense, is a lot less star-studded than the Browns were when Baker was there. So like it's gonna be interesting to see if it was like that cast holding up Baker, was it Baker holding up that cast? Like I think this move will kind of show a lot. Now, the problem is that Matt Rule has already said that he is okay rotating these guys to the hot hand.
mhm.
And the issue of doing the whole hot hand of the week is you don't get any chemistry with any of the players. Like QBs need to be able to like figure out in a groove like what wide receiver they can count on certain routes, on certain plays, and you don't get that chemistry in game time when you're just swapping out one player every other drive. It did not work out for the Panthers last year when they had Cam and Darnold, and I don't think it's going to work out for them this year.
I mean, you look at any team. I mean, you got to remember the quarterback is the leader of that offense, and if you're changing the leader every 5 minutes because someone else is better at that point in time, I mean that's just it's going to cause disunity. And we've seen it from time to time where you know, you go back and you look at the Bears last year, and you go and you see when Trey Lance got put in for the 49ers for a few things. Like, yeah, he may have a hot hand once in a while and make a good drive, but that consistency just isn't there. So um, especially when you just pass the torch back and forth. So it'll be really interesting to see how this game plays out. I think this is a way easier matchup for the Rams than a lot of these other games that we've had so far. I mean, when we look at the season as a whole, the Rams um, have the hardest schedule by far. And so, like, not to put the Panthers down on anything, but I think this will be one of this should be more one of the lock in games. So I'm definitely going to project 34. Um, oh man, I'm really going to think it. I think it's going to be 34 to 14.
Ooh,
I
ooh.
think I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a I think it's going to be big. I think it's going to be big.
I will agree with your assessment. I will say 40-20.
Oh, yeah.
I I think the Rams are gonna just crush this Panthers team. Um, they have a lot of good players. I just don't know if the coaching is there. Uh, if McCaffrey will stay healthy, who the QB will be. That if you have that many questions, it's going to be hard to beat a team like the Rams, where they are typically early on in the season starting to hit our stride. We will probably lose a game or two in the first 8 weeks. Yes, but typically it's to really good teams that are more like very hot in the beginning versus like weaker teams. Normally we hit our slump in the middle of the season with McVay, not near the beginning.
Yeah, honestly, I think losing, Gilmore for the Panthers is really going to, do them disservice, especially since, we have three really good wide receivers and a potential to have, well, and we wouldn't have OBJ for this game, you know, we have weapons on our field, and you lose one of your, ace. I still think he's a star cornerback, so losing him is going to be interesting.
Now, Zach, let's go to a familiar foe in the 49ers, which this is still like week 7 49ers is still way too early. Can we just like be say how weird this is, that I feel like this is the second one too, also, that we would have played them this season, and this feels like the earliest we have played them, even if the first game was week 7
Oh,
in
100%.
a long time.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that we're playing them, almost, within 3 games. I mean, that seems almost normal, but playing them in both of the games before before, the midway point, is crazy. I mean, we've never played them this early in the season before, both times. So very interesting. Um, Man, I don't even know where to take this one. We already dove into the pros and cons of this team going in last year. So we don't I don't think we really need to rehash, unless you want to, the additions and the departures. But kind of just, I guess for me, I'm thinking about, okay, so we're at week 7. Where are we
You
at for?
have a 7-0.
Yeah, 7 and
I
0.
have us at 6-1.
Okay, so pretty tight. I mean, that's a pretty good record going into week 7. And so, I'm it always goes back to, we still haven't got the final word of where Garoppolo's going. I mean, now there's rumors that, is Garoppolo staying? Is he going to go, be the quarterback for, or be a quarterback or backup quarterback for the Cleveland Browns if, things don't, go well there, in their quarterback room? But, it really depends on who's going to be leading the ship. And I don't even know if we've got any update on Debo, on what his real status is. So, those two unknowns make this a very difficult decision to make. I'm going to make this decision that, uh, a I think Trey Lance will be in there. I think Garoppolo will depart. So if I'm thinking of that basis, we are at week 7. Debo stays. But they are hungry to beat this Rams team. But I will say that I think we're going to continue on the win streak, and we will be 8-0, and the Rams will squeak out a winner. This one will be different. It is going to be, I think it's going to be 21-17.
Mm, very interesting. That definitely is quite the prediction there. Um, yeah, I think that regardless of who the so regardless of who the QB is, I think we're going to lose the second game. Now, who the QB is will kind of determine. I think if it's Garoppolo, we'll probably lose in a high scoring game. And if it's not, I think it's kind of like a close barn burner type of game, like a Jeff Fisher esque style of loss. I guess for now, if I had to put it, I have us losing 15-10. I think it is a kind of bump in the road, a mid season struggle almost. This team is good. It's had our number really for a while. I have us winning the first game, and I think the second game we just um kind of struggle a little bit against a really well coached team.
Even
I
at
mean,
home, we're at home.
yeah, yeah, I have us winning away and losing at home because
Okay.
I do feel like it's going to be a hostile environment for us.
All right.
Yeah, so I have us at 6-2. Zach has us at a very hot 8-0 start. 2018 vibes, Zach. 2018 vibes.
Hey, I think the Rams are hungry. They're hungry to continue down this road. So I'm yeah, I'm very confident in this team. Just kind of seeing how the pieces are coming together, how this team works, the work that they actually put into this game. Um, I really think that I really think that they're gonna pull something off here.
Hmm. So let's go ahead and dive into our last game we'll kind of talk about. And this is what's becoming a familiar foe. And for some reason, just like Green Bay, we always play the Buccaneers at Buccaneers. And it is Tom Brady led Buccaneers team. Yeah, Zach. We kind of broke this down a few months ago when we played them in the playoffs. They lost OJ Howard, Ronald Jones, Alex Kappa, and Jordan Whitehead. Not really huge names. I guess Ronald Jones is somewhat big. OJ Howard is a solid tight end. They end up signing Shaq Mason, really great guard. Uh, and they got back Goodwin and Gage and got back Davis, Carlton Davis. So I mean, mostly the same team as when they won the Super Bowl. They added O line, which I don't know if that was necessarily a need, but it never hurts, especially having Tom Brady. They were top five in both defense and offense last year. 13-4, really good team. I think a Bruce Arena. I think he's a really good coach. I wouldn't say he's a great coach, personally. I don't know if you consider that a hot take, Zach?
I do like Bruce Arians. I think he's actually a really good. I think he's a really good coach. He's more old school coach. I feel like, and it's just different. It's a different coaching style than what we have with McVay. And I
Is he top five?
if he is, he's like at five, maybe right outside of that. Um, I think he has to be put up there. I mean, I think he has that potential. I mean, I know that he has Tom Brady on his team, which maybe gives him bonus points to make him up a little bit higher. Um, but I don't think he's a bad coach. But I would like to see him. I haven't followed Bruce Arians through his whole history, but I'm more focused on his more recent tenure. So for now, I'm saying he's a good coach.
Hmm.
I will make
Yeah.
a one quick correction to make for us is that we are actually on week 9. There is a bye week before the 49ers game. So I don't know if you wanted to, put that into the note or whatever, but just to let everybody know that yes, we are on week 9. There was a break, there was a bye. So, when they go into that 49ers game, they will be a little bit more refreshed. Um, and then coming into this Buccaneers game,
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like we do worse with McVay after bye weeks.
which is then not good that it's an early bye week.
Yeah. Yeah. For some reason, I feel like the team just comes out slower,
Hmm.
which doesn't help playing against 49ers. So we'll kind of see which one of us is right with that game. But with this Buccaneer game, um, I think we have a bounce back. We've had their number. Some really good games between these two teams, even with the Jameis Winston Bucks. That really, really weird 2019 game that we should have won. That was like statistically all messed up
Hmm.
between Goff and Winston. That man, that game was probably the most confusing game I've watched in a long time between the Rams and another team. But really good barn burners. It's typically never boring with these two.
Yeah, I think it should be really fun. And this one, I always have a hard time with this game because I agree. We've had their number. If you go back and you look at, the divisional round where we won, um, you know, we had their number. I mean, we were stomping Tampa Bay at every turn we were stomping them, and then the only reason why we kind of just stepped on our foot every couple feet. We had the unfortunate couple fumbles with Akers. We had the fumble drop with Cup, and it was just such a weird game. But we've always had their number. Um, Knowing that we can't always be perfect, though, I do. This is at Tampa. We're back into enemy territory again. So I actually think this is where we get our first stop. In my opinion, I do see that we have the potential to win. Like I said, we've had their number, things like that. Um, but if I think that they're going to have to lose at some point, and I think Tampa Bay. I think Tom Brady is tired of getting sacked by Aaron Donald, and um, I think that they're going to have a better game plan. I don't think that's how Tom Brady wants to go out, and he wants to prove that um, he is better than that, and that they can stop the Super Bowl defending champs. So I do think that Tampa Bay will win this one. Um, I will say that it will probably be somewhat close, but I will say 34-30. They're going to come back and score a last minute touchdown.
I am laughing, Zach, because I had the exact same score, but the Rams winning on a last second touchdown, Ravens style from last year. Which that was a crazy game to be at because I thought we were gonna lose the entire second and third quarter, and I was completely freaking out with a churro all in hand.
And if you put that in the notes before I said anything, I did not even look. I was just going off the cuff of what I thought. So that's funny. Funny, funny,
Yeah,
funny.
yeah. So like, yeah. I guess for and some of this is flow, right? Like I have the flow of our season where we lose in the opener and we lose a week 7 game against the 49ers. But really I feel like this team starts to hit its stride at this point in time, and I feel like we get a statement win against the Bucks and we just continue like to kind of just hold them down because our team is very well built against the Bucks to beat the Bucks, right? We're
Yep.
not a very well built team to beat the 49ers. 49ers are very well built to beat us. And like that's just sometimes the matchups are a big deal. And that's why like in the playoffs, getting good matchups can kind of make or break your postseason.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Like, and when I evaluate these games, all these games are winnable. You may say that yes, we have the toughest division in football, and yes, we could probably lose a couple more than what we've kind of stated out here. But every game so far that we've done, I mean, in any of these games, I think the Rams have the tools, they have the weapons, they have the coaching staff, they have the ability to win these games. And they're things that when we're projecting this right now, we can't foresee. We can't foresee injury. We can't
Hmm.
foresee a pandemic that makes players not be able to participate on a particular night. Like we see this all the time, and so we're projecting a fully healthy team, and we I think that there are ways that we have to think about, okay, are they going to be tired, are they going to be worn out, take the bye into consideration. Really, I think that we could be undefeated at this point. I think it's very unlikely. I think there is going to be some missteps. It's hard to detail what those missteps will be, and it could be easy, it could be a trap game, it could be something like that. So I
You really never know. We could have a Matt Stafford that is playing like fourth quarter Matt Stafford, but in every quarter, and a Cooper Cup that is on pace to break the season he had last year. Like, is that likely? No. But that's a possibility, and we could have a season where we go undefeated. I don't think that's out of the possibility.
and it's not, and and to be real, I mean, we had that bad November, and it took a big rally to get out of that. But we have that opposite effect too, where we could see us fall if something just doesn't click. But I think the chemistry is there, the team is there, the team is ready to take up the mantle, and they're
It's the
ready to.
culture.
Yeah, it is that culture, and you see all these teams, and they're trying to do this, and they're trying to do that, and they're trying to bring in a quarterback, and they're, all of these things. But if that culture isn't there to begin with, you're gonna have a problem. And you could go buy a quarterback, but if that quarterback doesn't fit in to your culture, you're just buying him because, hey, this guy's a good quarterback. You know, I'm going to take the example because I live in Indianapolis. I think Matt Ryan is going to do way better than um, Carson Wentz did last year. But is Frank Reich and Matt Ryan going to have that same chemistry? You never know. I mean, Matt Stafford met Sean McVay in Cabo, and they just decided to let's. I think this is going to be work out great. I don't know if those conversations are had in all of these different areas. I have no idea what Cleveland's doing. I mean, that just seems like a hot mess express to begin with. So I think the culture is just there, and you don't see this very often in these teams where this culture is 100% the coaching staff, the detail in the coaching staff, and the rehabilitation of these players that do get injured, and that they're put on to a proper path, and that they're still like they're not forgotten. I mean, how easy could it have been to forget about Cam Akers when he torn his Achilles? I mean, it kind of did help that Henderson also kind of was injury prone, but Sony Michel was our workhorse for December. I mean, he was the reason why we were where we were at in the Super Bowl, getting us through December. So this culture that we have, you bring in players, you make them buy into this culture, and then you lock it. And that's
Hmm.
why, like, I'm afraid, I think the one thing, yes, I'm afraid when Aaron Donald does decide to retire, but I'm afraid when McVay retires and we don't have a replacement that's going to keep that culture alive. I think
Hmm.
McVay really has solidified this culture, and he has solidified it since he started. Sorry, I know I went
Uh,
on a huge rant.
no, no, no. It's fine. Perfect. Really good stuff there. I don't necessarily think the culture is 100% off of McVay. I think it's a very weird mix of player, uh, like the player base culture for the Rams being able to be something where it's like a tone, it's like an atmosphere. When you walk in the locker room, like no matter who's in there, you have a chance to start if you're balling out. And it that is something not every locker room has.
Hmm.
And it's like a security in yourself to perform. And that is something that like we're not being homers here, guys. Like we'll be admit, like the Rams have made a lot of mistakes in the last 3 or 4 years. They have, especially contract wise. Player like how they handled Goff. Uh, they have made mistakes, but for the most part, the great thing about Snead and McVay is they adapt. And they constantly adapt, even though it's not at the rate sometimes I want, especially mid game. Lord, McVay was so bad first 2 years at like adjusting in the middle of a game. He's gone a lot better, but like it may not be at the rate sometimes, but he's just. And some fan bases just want their coaches to do something by mid-season.
Hmm.
So like we have something special in McVay, and we got to enjoy these years while we got him, because like you said, when he leaves, it's going to be hard for that culture, that player culture, to kind of like hold over, especially when we lose more and more of our leaders.
For sure. For sure. Well, we got through our weeks. We got through week 9. So we are beyond the halfway point. Right, 18 weeks, 17 games, 18 weeks. So yeah, I mean, I think we're both in a good position as far as what our scores are. You are 7-1, and I am or
Six and
seven,
two.
6-2. I'm 7-1. Um, so yeah, I think we're looking at a good place. Any other final thoughts?
No, guys. We look forward to doing the next few episodes. Hopefully, there's some Rams news. Never know. Crazy trade. Snead is always willing and dealing.
Yeah, and so I will be at the Bengals Rams game, preseason game at the Bengals Paul Brown Stadium. So I'm taking my dad, who's a Bengals fan. I'm taking his season tickets for the preseason game, which is just going to be awesome because all of his buddies and friends he makes in that area, that's like season club people. So it's going to be really fun to wear. I can't decide which jersey to wear. We're going to have a whole podcast episode
Ooh,
on what
ooh.
jersey to wear. So
You
preview.
you gotta do cup. Gotta do
Oh,
cup.
I know. So here's my options. I have Bone Gray Cup. I have the Super Bowl patch, modern throwback Aaron Donald, and then I have my personalized one, which is 5, but it's also Ramsey. So I get to play both Ramsey, and it also has my personal name on the back, which is also my family name, and my family name is all Bengals fans. So people know that where they have the season tickets, people know that if they have that last name, they're Bengals fans. So it's one of those things where like I'm having a really tough decision on which
Ooh.
jersey to pick.
See, it kind of depends how petty you want to be. If you want to be petty, you wear the Super Bowl jersey. But I don't
No.
know if that's a great idea to walk into the team that lost it their stadium the first game after.
I know, and then I'm afraid someone's gonna throw something on it, and it's gonna get stained up because it's
Yeah.
it's that nice white color. Um, but I
Yeah,
really
the
also,
bone gray will kind of match.
yeah, I really want to find their throne. You've seen their throne, right? Their king of the jungle, and I want a picture on it. And I was like, well, I should wear my Super Bowl '99 jersey. I mean, how perfect would that be?
Ooh.
So like that's what I really want to find, but I feel like I really would have pitchforks on top of me if someone, a big group of people saw me do that. I might have
I
to do
think
that
you would
like
have a lot of people with like eyeballs, like kind of like
I don't care. I'm just gonna
staring
do
at
the
you with
Aaron
death.
Donald like ring, like just point to my ring finger the whole time.
Oh, that would be so good.
I
Oh, that's
think
a great picture.
I think that would be awesome.
Oh yeah.
So, if you guys, this kind of sums it up, but if you guys have any opinions on what I should wear to the Bengals Rams preseason game, please let us know. You can send us feedback at eastcoastrams.com, or even hit us up on Twitter. Let us know what you think I should wear to the preseason game, and tell us what you guys think about our predictions. Give us your own predictions. Our official Twitter account for the East Coast Rams is at East Coast Rams. But you can also find us. You can find Ashton at Rams fan Ashton 1, and myself at Zach Mayer. But yeah, big thanks to everyone who listens to the pod and interacts with us. Again, we do this. We're Rams fans. We want to reach out to Rams fans as many of you as we possibly can. Hopefully, maybe we can try to work out getting some new guests on. Bringing some fans, bringing some fans from other the teams that we are going to be facing up, just to kind of get a preview in their sense of how that team is working cohesively. But yeah, if you guys could please take time to like, share, review the podcast with fellow Rams fans. It just allows us to keep this project growing and allow as many people as possible to hear our takes. Ashton, any other final last words?
Uh, let's horns up and hope everyone has a really good summer. Try to stay a little cool. It's getting a little toasty out there.
It's getting toasty everywhere. If you're in LA, it's toasty. If you're in the Midwest, you're toasty. If you're on the East Coast, you're toasty. You're just toasty everywhere. So, yeah, everyone be safe out there. And whose house? Rams house.